My boyfriend laughed at me in front of his coworkers, dumped me over dinner, and left me with the check while he walked out saying a girl like you should feel lucky anyone even wanted you. I smiled, paid the bill, and let him go. The next morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls and a voicemail from his mother crying. Okay, so I'm still trying to process how my life turned into a low-budget Netflix drama over the course of one weekend, because honestly, if someone told me this story happened to them, I would assume they were exaggerating for attention. But nope. My overdraft fees and emotional damage would like to confirm every ridiculous detail. For context, I'd been dating Ethan for almost 3 years. 3 years. We weren't some casual situationship with matching hoodies and unresolved trauma. We had routines. Friday takeout nights. Shared grocery lists. Matching toothbrushes at each other's apartments. His mom literally sent me birthday cards signed "Love You Always." Looking back now, there were definitely red flags flapping around like inflatable tube men outside a car dealership. But at the time, I kept explaining them away because apparently my toxic trait is seeing potential where there's just audacity. Ethan had this habit of putting me down in these tiny, subtle ways that didn't seem serious individually. He'd say stuff like you'd actually be really pretty if you dressed differently, or joke about how I was lucky he liked girls who were low maintenance, because I wasn't exactly influencer material. Cute stuff like that. And I laughed it off because when someone says hurtful things wrapped in sarcasm long enough, you start convincing yourself you're too sensitive. Anyway, 2 Fridays ago, Ethan invited me to dinner with some people from his office, which was weird because he never included me in work things. He always claimed his office was super professional and relationships were messy optics, or whatever corporate nonsense phrase he'd picked up from podcasts. So naturally, I got excited. I bought a new outfit even though my bank account begged me not to. I spent an hour curling my hair while watching one of those get ready with me TikToks, pretending I too had my life together. I even used the expensive perfume I save for special occasions, because apparently humiliation smells better with vanilla notes. The restaurant should have been my first warning sign. You know those places where the lighting is so dim you need your flashlight to read the menu, and every plate looks like modern art made by someone who hates portion sizes? That kind of place. I got there 2 minutes late because downtown parking is basically a psychological experiment, and Ethan immediately hit me with "Wow, nice of you to finally show up." Not joking. His coworkers laughed awkwardly, and I thought, okay, weird start, but maybe he's stressed. Then he looked me up and down and said, "You wore that." Not quietly either. I was wearing a simple black dress. Nothing dramatic, nothing revealing. Just a normal dress that I actually thought looked pretty cute, until he said that, and suddenly I felt like I'd shown up wearing a clown costume. I tried laughing it off like, haha, should I go home and change? But he just shrugged and went back to talking to his coworkers. The entire dinner felt like being trapped inside one long public humiliation ritual. Every time I tried joining the conversation, Ethan interrupted me, corrected me, talked over me. At one point, I mentioned something funny that happened at work, and he literally waved his hand and said she works retail, so her version of stress is different from ours. I've been managing a store for 4 years, by the way. But apparently because I don't spend my days making PowerPoints in a glass office building my job suddenly wasn't real. Then one of his coworkers asked how we met, and before I could answer, Ethan goes, "Honestly, I wasn't even interested at first." She pursued me pretty hard. You guys, I almost choked on my water, because that was objectively false. He asked me out after messaging me for 2 months straight and showing up to my coffee shop. Coincidentally, 3 weekends in a row. I remember just sitting there wondering if I was losing my mind or if he was rewriting history in real time for entertainment. Then came the comments about my food. I ordered pasta because it was one of the cheaper menu items, and Ethan kept making little remarks like "brave choice before summer" or "carbs after 8 p.m. is wild." Each comment was tiny, but together, it felt like death by 1,000 paper cuts. At some point, I excused myself to the bathroom because I could physically feel tears building, and I refused to cry in front of his coworkers. I texted my best friend Mia, "What is happening?" She immediately replied, "OMG, are you okay?" And while I was standing there trying not to have a breakdown in a restaurant bathroom, I got a notification that Ethan had posted an Instagram story. Boys' night. While I was literally sitting 10 feet away from him. At that point, I should have left. I know that now. But when you're blindsided like that, your brain keeps trying to convince itself maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Maybe they're joking weirdly. Maybe you're overreacting. Spoiler alert, I was not overreacting. The bill finally came and Ethan picked it up, stared at it for a second, then slid it across the table toward me. I genuinely thought he wanted me to look at the total. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and said, "I don't think this relationship is working anymore." Just like that, no warning. No conversation beforehand. Nothing. I laughed at first because I thought he was kidding. He wasn't. He starts talking about how we've grown apart and how he's realized he needs someone more polished and ambitious and attractive enough to fit into his lifestyle. His coworkers looked deeply uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to stop him apparently. I asked if he was seriously breaking up with me in the middle of a restaurant, and this man actually stood up, grabbed his jacket, and said you should honestly be grateful I stayed with you as long as I did. Then he left. All three of them walked out together, leaving me with a $386 bill. I just sat there staring at the doorway like my soul had temporarily disconnected from my body. The waiter came over looking horrified and quietly asked if I needed more time. I paid the bill with my credit card while actively dissociating. Then I made it to my car and completely lost it. I called Mia sobbing so hard she thought someone died. She came straight over with tacos, wine, and the kind of rage only a best friend can summon. Like genuinely ready to commit crimes on my behalf. And that's when things got weird. Because while I was crying and replaying everything Ethan said, Mia suddenly goes, "Wait, none of that makes sense." Apparently Ethan had been lying, about a lot. Turns out he wasn't some rising finance executive on track for a promotion like he constantly claimed. He was a junior assistant who spent most of his day scheduling meetings and fixing spreadsheets. The luxury business trips. Fake. The team he managed. Didn't exist. The expensive apartment he bragged about leasing himself. His parents paid half the rent. And suddenly every weird inconsistency over the last 3 years started clicking into place like the world's worst puzzle. At around 2 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Daniel from Ethan's office. There's something you should probably know." And that's when my weekend somehow got even worse. First update because apparently my life is now a serialized drama. So after learning my boyfriend had basically been role-playing as a successful adult for 3 years, I spent the next few days in full goblin mode. I'm talking oversized hoodie, crying into garlic bread, ignoring emails, rewatching the same comfort show for the 5th time because my brain couldn't process new information. My apartment looked post-apocalyptic. At one point, I found ice cream in my bedside drawer, and honestly, I still don't know how it got there. The worst part was my brain refusing to accept the breakup was real. I kept instinctively reaching for my phone to text Ethan dumb little things before remembering, oh right, he publicly destroyed my self-esteem over appetizers. Meanwhile, Mia had apparently formed an alliance with Daniel from Ethan's office because the amount of gossip they were uncovering was genuinely insane. According to Daniel, Ethan had been telling people at work that he broke up with me because I was obsessed with marriage and letting myself go. Sir, this man once ate shredded cheese directly from the bag while lying on my floor. Be serious. Then came the real bombshell. Ethan was apparently already on thin ice at work for taking credit for other people's projects and exaggerating his responsibilities to clients. Everything about him was smoke and mirrors. I was still trying to process that when I got a call from his mom. And here's the thing about his mom, Linda. She's genuinely lovely. Like remembers your coffee order lovely. Sends you random photos of dogs because they remind her of you lovely. So when she asked sweetly if I was still coming to Ethan's birthday dinner Saturday, I nearly dropped my phone. Because apparently Ethan had told his entire family we were perfectly fine. Not only that, he told them we had exciting news to share. You guys, this man publicly dumped me 3 days earlier and was now apparently pretending we were still together. At that point, Mia looked at me and said absolutely not. We are not letting this man rewrite history. And honestly, she was right. My boyfriend embarrassed me in front of his coworkers, dumped me at dinner, and left me with a $400 bill while he walked out saying a girl like me should feel lucky he even dated me. I thought that was the worst part. Then his mom called me crying the next morning and asked why I wasn't coming to his birthday dinner. You guys. I genuinely don't know how my life turned into a 6-part Facebook drama written by someone who's been hurt before, but here we are. So for context, I dated Ethan for almost 3 years. Not some casual talking stage where you share fries twice and suddenly call each other soulmates. We were serious. Like leave a phone charger at each other's apartment serious. Like discussing future baby names while shopping at Target serious. His family loved me. My friends tolerated him. And looking back now, that probably should have told me everything I needed to know. At first, Ethan seemed charming in that confident, ambitious guy way. He always talked about his big projects at work and his plans to eventually start his own company. He dressed well, talked well, and somehow always knew exactly what to say around people. But privately, different story. He had this habit of making these tiny little comments that chipped away at me over time. Nothing obvious enough to complain about. Just subtle stuff. You'd look better if you lost a little weight in your face. You're cute when you try harder with your makeup. You should let me order for you because you always pick unhealthy stuff. Stuff that sounds small when you repeat it out loud. but somehow sticks in your brain at 2 a.m. while you're staring at the ceiling wondering if you actually are the problem. And because I apparently majored in excusing men university, I ignored every red flag. Anyway, about 2 weeks ago, Ethan invited me to dinner with some people from his office, which immediately felt unusual because he never included me in work events. He always claimed it was unprofessional. Still, I was excited. I bought a new dress even though my savings account begged me not to. I curled my hair, did the full skincare routine, watched 3 makeup tutorials because I wanted to look good. It's honestly embarrassing how badly I wanted that man's approval. The restaurant was one of those super expensive downtown places where every plate has microgreens for no reason, and the menu doesn't list prices because apparently rich people enjoy jump scares. I arrived literally 2 minutes late because parking downtown is a form of psychological warfare, and the second I sat down, Ethan looked at me and went, "Wow, you actually wore that." Not joking. One of his coworkers awkwardly laughed into his drink while I sat there trying to figure out if he was serious. I was wearing a black dress. A normal black dress. Nothing crazy. I tried to brush it off, but the whole vibe at the table already felt weird. Ethan barely acknowledged me after that. Every time I spoke, he interrupted me or corrected me. At one point, I mentioned something stressful happening at work, and he literally laughed and told his coworkers she thinks retail drama is comparable to real business pressure. I manage an entire store, by the way. But apparently because I don't spend all day in meetings saying words like synergy, my job suddenly didn't count. Then one of his coworkers asked how we met. Before I could answer, Ethan goes, "Honestly, she chased me for months before I finally gave her a chance." My jaw almost hit the table, because he pursued me relentlessly. Like this man used to accidentally show up at the same coffee shop as me every weekend until I agreed to go out with him. But there he was casually rewriting our relationship history in front of an audience like he was giving a TED Talk called Surviving Desperate Women. I excused myself to the bathroom because I could physically feel tears building up. While I was in the stall texting my best friend Mia that I thought Ethan was having some kind of public breakdown, I got a notification. Ethan had posted an Instagram story. Caption, "Boys' night." BOYS night, while I was literally sitting 10 feet away from him. At that point, I should have left. But when someone humiliates you gradually, your brain keeps trying to rationalize it. Like maybe he's joking. Maybe I'm sensitive. Maybe I misunderstood. Spoiler alert, I did not misunderstand. The waiter finally brought the bill and Ethan picked it up, stared at it for a second, then slid it toward me. I thought he wanted me to see the total. Instead, he leaned back and said, "I don't think this relationship is working anymore." Just flat out, no warning, no conversation beforehand, nothing. I actually laughed because I thought it had to be a joke. It wasn't. He starts talking about how he needs someone more polished and attractive who fits into his future. Then this man, says he's lost attraction to me because I've stopped taking care of myself. Meanwhile, he hadn't been to a gym in 8 months and ate gas station taquitos like they were a food group. I asked if he was seriously breaking up with me in the middle of a restaurant, and he stands up, grabs his jacket, and says this sentence that I genuinely think altered my brain chemistry forever. "A girl like you should honestly be grateful I stayed as long as I did." Then he left, just walked out. His coworkers followed him like emotionally stunted ducklings, leaving me alone with a $387 bill. You know that feeling when you get hit with such intense humiliation that your body just goes numb? That. The waiter looked so uncomfortable he wouldn't even make eye contact with me. I paid using my credit card while actively dissociating. Then I got to my car and completely lost it. I called Mia sobbing so hard she thought someone had died. She came straight over with tacos, wine, and enough anger to qualify as a superpower. And that's when things started unraveling. Because while I was crying and replaying everything Ethan said, Mia suddenly got quiet and asked me something weird. Had Ethan ever actually shown you proof of any of the stuff he says about work? At first, I defended him automatically. Then I stopped. Because honestly, no, not really. Turns out Mia had a mutual friend who worked at Ethan's company. And according to him, Ethan wasn't some rising finance executive about to become partner or whatever fantasy title he constantly bragged about. He was an assistant, an actual assistant. The team he managed didn't exist. The international clients, fake. The luxury business trips, mostly conferences he attended once, or straight-up lies. Apparently he'd spent years exaggerating his position to literally everyone in his life. I felt physically sick. Because suddenly every weird inconsistency over the last 3 years started making sense. Why he was always weirdly vague about work details. Why he never let me visit his office. Why his stories constantly changed. At around 2 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Daniel from Ethan's office. There's some stuff you deserve to know." And that's when my weekend somehow got worse. First update because apparently my suffering is now episodic content. The next few days after the breakup were rough, like truly pathetic behavior. I wore the same hoodie for 2 straight days. Ate cereal for dinner. Cried because a grocery store playlist played our song. My apartment looked like a depression starter pack. Meanwhile, Mia and Daniel apparently became investigative journalists because together they uncovered enough information about Ethan to qualify for a documentary. According to Daniel, Ethan had been lying to everyone at work too, not just me. He constantly exaggerated his accomplishments, took credit for projects he barely touched, and told coworkers insane stories about his personal life, including telling people I was obsessed with him and constantly pressuring him about marriage. Which is wild because this man once showed me engagement rings just to see what styles I liked. Also revealed Ethan was already in trouble at work for lying to management and screwing up client reports. So basically his entire personality was just confidence plus misinformation. Then came the phone call. Ethan's mom Linda called me Wednesday afternoon asking if everything was okay between us because Ethan said we'd had a small disagreement. Small disagreement. Ma'am, your son publicly executed our relationship over truffle pasta. Then she casually mentions how excited everyone is for Ethan's birthday dinner Saturday because apparently we have big news to share. I almost dropped my phone. Because somehow Ethan had convinced his entire family we were still together. After I hung up, Mia stared at me for a solid 10 seconds before going. Oh no, we're going to that dinner. And honestly, she was right. Because I wasn't about to let Ethan rewrite our entire relationship and make me the villain while pretending everything was fine. So Saturday night I showed up. And you guys, the look on Ethan's face when he saw me walk through that door, absolutely priceless. For one glorious second, this man looked like his soul left his body. His entire family immediately started smiling and hugging me while Ethan stood there visibly panicking. Linda kept talking about our announcement. His grandma asked if I was pregnant. I almost blacked out. Ethan grabbed my elbow and whispered we need to talk privately right now. But before he could drag me away, his dad announced dinner was ready. Perfect timing. We all sat down around the table, and Ethan spent the entire meal looking like he was about to throw up. Then the lies started. His dad asked about work, and Ethan launched into this massive speech about leading projects and preparing for promotions. I just sat there quietly eating mashed potatoes, while this man built an entire fictional cinematic universe around himself. Then the doorbell rang, and in walked Daniel, holding work folders. I genuinely almost started laughing. Ethan looked ready to pass away on the spot. His dad invited Daniel to sit with us because apparently chaos was the side dish that evening. And then everything exploded. Because Ethan's sister casually asked Daniel about Ethan's promotion. Daniel froze, looked at me, looked at Ethan, then finally said, Ethan hasn't been promoted. Silence. Actual horrifying silence. Ethan immediately started stammering about company restructuring and complicated titles, but his sister kept asking questions. What about the team he managed? What about the office he claimed to have? What about the presentations he supposedly led? Every answer unraveled another lie. And once the lying started, collapsed completely. Finally, Ethan snapped and accused everyone of attacking him. That's when his mom quietly asked me what actually happened at the restaurant. And I told them everything, the insults, the breakup, the bill, the comment about me being lucky he dated me, all of it. His mother looked devastated. His dad looked furious. His grandma straight up called him an idiot. And Ethan, he completely lost it. Started yelling that I ruined his life and turned everyone against him. Then he pointed at me and screamed that no one else would ever want me anyway, in front of his entire family. Again. His dad immediately told him to stop talking. Ethan stormed out, slamming the front door so hard a framed family photo literally fell off the wall. And then the weirdest part happened. His mom apologized to me, then insisted I stay for cake. So there I was, eating birthday cake with my ex-boyfriend's family, while the birthday boy was having a public meltdown somewhere else. Honestly. 10/10 cheesecake, though. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Because the next morning I woke up to 14 missed calls, and apparently Ethan had completely lost his mind overnight.